In 2017, the United States executed the eighth most people in the world. They followed behind 7 totalitarian countries such as China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Pakistan, Egypt, and Somalia. As the country that crowns itself the greatest country in the world and the shining example of democratic government, it is absolutely appalling that we continue the barbaric practice of the death penalty. In the United States today, the death penalty is legal by 5 different methods: electrocution, lethal gas, firing squad, lethal injection, and hanging. Not only is killing people inhumane and barbaric in the United States, we regularly commit innocent people to the death penalty. The National Academy of Sciences published a study in 2014 that stated at least 4% of defendants sentenced to death row are innocent. That could mean that 120 of the United States' 3,000 inmates on death row could be innocent. I used my research of online scholarly journals and viable academic websites to explain why the United States must abolish the illogical and inhumane practice of the death penalty. Today, I'm going to be covering 4 reasons why the death penalty should be abolished in America. First, death is forever, and it is inhumane to kill. Second, a disproportionate majority of people given the death penalty are minority men. Third, only God should have the authority to decide who lives or dies. Fourth, it is a dangerous threat to democracy to give the government the power to kill legally. First, I would like you to think about the logic of the death penalty. You're killing someone to show others not to kill. If you kill a murderer, what separates you from that murderer? Not only is the death penalty illogical, it is also inhumane. Killing someone is the ultimate evil. Once someone is dead, it cannot be undone. Prison workers should not be forced to murder a human being. Criminals should still face life in prison for the crimes they've committed, and they should be locked in prison with no chance of ever getting out to hurt another person. Being locked in prison is hard enough of a punishment, as the criminal's freedom is completely stripped away from them for the rest of their life. In fact, one could even argue that execution is the easy way out, as it allows murderers to dodge having to face the reality of what they've done. Also, it is the unfortunate and heart-wrenching reality that people get wrongly prosecuted. Innocent people are getting put to death because of mob mentality and this thirst for revenge. In the early 20th century, lynch mobs murdered thousands of black men under false accusations as little as looking at white women the wrong way. Lynchings were advertised and drew large crowds to watch the public murders. One such disturbing example was August 28, 1955, when Emmett Smith, a 14-year-old boy, was brutally murdered for supposedly whistling at a store owner. The store owner's husband and his half-brother mutilated the 14-year-old's body to the point that when the body was recovered, he was only recognizable by his uncle because of a ring with his initials on his finger. The all-white jury acquitted Roy Bryant and his half-brother, who both later confessed to the murder, but due to U.S. law, they could not be tried twice. His wife, Caroline Bryant, also later admitted that the boy never touched her or even said a word to her. The criminal justice system failed Emmett Smith and his family, and this example took place when many of our grandparents were alive. The ugly truth is that racism is still alive today, and the criminal justice system will continue to fail as long as we continue the practice of legal lynching through the practice of the death penalty. This example of racism still exists. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, from 1995 to 2000, 80% of all the federal capital cases recommended by U.S. attorneys to the Attorney General seeking the death penalty involved people of color. Even after review by the Attorney General, 72% of the cases approved for the death penalty prosecution involved minority defendants. The biggest issue with the death penalty is that we leave room for human error. When deciding whether or not a man lives or dies, it is imperative that we do not have people who could be biased in making their decision. Because of the way our criminal justice system is designed, we allow for human error, and that is why, according to the National Academy of Sciences, 1 in 25 people given the death penalty are innocent. When dealing with life, one mistake is too many, and we need to abolish the death penalty. Next, I would like to talk about the religious aspect of killing. We as humans do not have the ultimate power to take vengeance on other people for the crimes they commit. We can lock these people up to ensure that they never hurt another soul. However, we do not have the immoral authority to seek vengeance through death. In Romans 12:19 it is stated, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." With guidance from the Bible, we should not seek revenge, but leave ultimate judgment to the Lord. Another example is Exodus 20:13, "Thou shalt not murder." We are directed by the Bible not to take the life of another. Lastly, I would like to address my fourth and final reason as to why we should not continue the practice of the death penalty. By giving the government the power to kill, we risk giving the power too much to the government. Furthermore, we risk the sanctity of democracy itself. Historically, totalitarian leaders have used the death penalty to instill fear in the people and maintain its power over the masses. The United States, the leader of the free world, should not be associated with the practices of the death penalty that are used by totalitarian governments to ensure control over people. Continuing the practice of the same punishment methods used by failing autocracies hinder our ability to negotiate foreign policy on the basis that it is hypocritical to tell a country not to do something that we as a nation still do. To wrap things up, we discussed four main reasons why the United States must discontinue the death penalty. First, it is that it is inhumane and there are better ways to punish criminals. Secondly, I discussed the racial oppression as there is a disproportionate majority of minority men that are sentenced to the death penalty. Next, I discussed how we do not have the moral authority to determine who lives or dies, and that we should leave the ultimate judgment to the Lord. Lastly, I discussed how the death penalty could undermine democracy itself and how it is used by totalitarian regimes to maintain political power over their people. The United States, as the leader of the free world, should be embarrassed to still practice the barbaric punishment of the death penalty. We need to hold our country to higher moral standards, and that is why I'm asking you to write to your local representatives and call for the abolishment of the death penalty. Thank you.